Welcome to the Explainer. Let's just dive right in, shall we? Today, we're acting as your personal guide to get you out of that awful decision paralysis. We're breaking down Jonathan Reed's fantastic book, Start a Business from Zero, Build Skills, Change Behavior, Create Stability. We're going to dismantle the exact psychological traps that are keeping you stuck. So if you've been terrified of making the wrong move, you are absolutely in the right place.
Let's just face it, we all ask ourselves this question. Am I going to pick the wrong business? It's this intense, heavy pressure, right? This feeling that you're making some sort of lifelong commitment. And honestly, that completely paralyzes us. We tend to think that one wrong step is going to ruin the whole shebang. But as Jonathan Reed points out, that assumption is completely false. And worse, it's the exact thing holding you back from making any progress.
Just look at the story of Julia. It perfectly illustrates how this plays out in the real world. While her peers were spending literally 3 whole months buried in theory, comparing different service models, reading endless articles, going down rabbit holes, Julia just picked a simple model. She spent 3 weeks actually doing the work. She went out there and talked to potential clients. And the result? Well, Julia quickly gained real-world market feedback. She completely avoided that dangerous trap of endlessly comparing her options.
What Julia's peers were suffering from is something psychologists call choice overload. You know the feeling, having way too many attractive options. Should I do digital products, consulting, local services, e-commerce? It actually kind of breaks our brains. Psychologically speaking, this absolute abundance of choice just destroys our clarity. It leads to endless delays and a massive amount of lost time simply because you're constantly weighing hypothetical pros and cons instead of doing anything.
And underneath that overload is a super powerful psychological block for beginners, loss aversion. Choosing one single option makes us feel this painful, permanent loss of all the other doors we're closing. Our brain desperately avoids picking a lane because keeping all of our options open, well, it falsely feels like a safe strategy. But I promise you, keeping your options open is just an illusion that keeps you standing completely still. Here's the core truth of the matter. Your brain really prefers optionality for safety. It's wired that way. But staying in this state of low-intensity research just to avoid the discomfort of making a decision completely prevents you from getting real results. Choosing a temporary path and actually moving forward is infinitely better than idle waiting. Progress requires constraint. Without it, you're really just a professional researcher, not a business owner. Let's think about learning by imagining versus learning by doing. I mean, you can read every single book ever written on swimming. You can watch every YouTube tutorial, but until you actually jump into the water, you can't swim. You cannot learn business just by searching for the perfect path in your head. You've got to start making offers, interact with reality, and honestly, take a few lumps along the way. A big reason we avoid jumping in is complexity bias. We often assume that a straightforward service business is just somehow too basic. We mistakenly believe that more complex models are naturally more valuable or somehow more legitimate. And that causes beginners to throw away perfectly good, highly actionable ideas just because they sound a little too simple or, unglamorous. But as Reed so emphatically points out, simplicity is a massive competitive advantage. Trying to juggle a personal brand, digital products, and a consulting arm all at once right out of the gate spreads you way too thin. Embracing simplicity gives you the speed and the agility that is absolutely crucial to survive the launch phase. Basically, the simpler the model, the faster you can execute. Now, if you are terrified that picking a simple idea is going to be a mistake, please remember this. Mistakes are rapid lessons, not failures. Early-stage business success is not about finding one genius, flawless idea. It's all about your speed of iteration and how fast you can learn. Every so-called mistake is really just valuable data collected directly from the market, telling you exactly how to adjust your approach. And that brings us to the absolutely genius concept of the temporary testing ground. Your first business is not a life sentence. Treat it as a laboratory in a highly uncertain market. For example, starting a local dog walking gig, that isn't your forever career. It's a low-risk lab where you can learn sales, figure out how to manage schedules, and master customer service. You were just picking a sandbox to build your skills in. So that begs the question, how do we actually logically choose this temporary lab? How do we completely eliminate that decision paralysis once and for all? Well, let's look at some specific tools from Reed's workbook. These are going to help you objectively evaluate and choose your first lane, which takes all the emotional guesswork right out of the process. We're going to start by mapping the terrain. Here are the 5 most beginner-friendly lanes you can take: skills-based services, physical products, digital products, local business,
and expert knowledge sharing. We're going to run these 5 options through our evaluation tool to see which one makes the most sense for you to start right now. Okay, this scoring matrix is the absolute key to breaking your paralysis. You're going to rate each lane from 1 to 5 based on simplicity, fit, cost, and confidence. But notice what is entirely missing here: potential. You must evaluate these options based on your realistic resources today, not some fantasy of tomorrow. Is it simple enough, and do you have the confidence to execute it right now? That is what matters. This right here is where the magic happens. Using this simple 1 to 5 scoring sheet forces your brain out of that complexity bias we talked about. Instead of drowning in endless possibilities, you force yourself into analytical clarity. The numbers don't lie. They provide a clear winner, giving you the exact excuse you need to finally stop researching and start taking action. It really boils down to 3 simple steps to overcome that paralysis. Step 1, score the 5 lanes based on reality. Step 2, decide on the most realistic option that scores the highest. And step 3, and listen, this is crucial, write a clear commitment statement. By doing this, logic finally overrides impulse, you stop switching ideas every 5 minutes, and you finally have a solid target to aim at. I do need to give you a quick warning here, though. Beware of premature optimization. This is a super dangerous trap where you switch lanes the moment things get slightly difficult, well before you have any hard market data. If you run away at the very first hurdle and completely change your business model, you just hit the reset button and bring your entire learning process back to absolute zero. Don't do it. Because of that, Reed issues a really specific challenge. First, commit to your chosen lane. Next, set an if-then plan and take your first aligned action within 48 hours. That is completely non-negotiable. Then, enter a 90-day experiment phase. Treat your chosen model as a strict 3-month learning cycle instead of this immediate, stressful pressure cooker, and just see what happens. Here is exactly what the action timeline looks like. At hour 0, you make your constrained decision. Within 48 hours, you execute one specific experiment, like, for example, texting 3 friends to offer your new consulting service for free just to get a test client. Then, over the next 90 days, your testing stages involved building basic skills, gathering that initial feedback, and tweaking your offer to create true stability step by step. I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from Reed. You do not discover the perfect path and then commit. You commit, and the path becomes clearer. Think about that for a second. What will you build in your 90-day lab? Your perfect business won't be born perfectly formed in your head. It's going to be born by colliding with the real market. So what is your 48-hour move going to be? It's time to stop researching and start acting today.